Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It's 6:07. It's Tuesday morning, the 24th day of June. Thanks for tuning in here. In 30 minutes, we're going to talk to Hans von Spakovsky. He's known as the David Bowie of the legal analysis world. I've often called him that. 7:05, Gila Franklin Siegel of the Jewish Community Relations Council of Greater Washington. 7:35, Matt Foldy of the Washington Reporter. And then at 8:35, Jim Jordan of Ohio. That's all coming up. It's Larry O'Connor with Julie Gunlock. Good morning, Jules.
Good morning.
You following New York politics?
I am a little. It's fascinating.
It's a crazy primary. Today will be the primary. Eric Adams is the incumbent. He is not running for the Democrat nomination. He is running for re-election. So I used to live in New York. It's crazy. There's like 15 political parties.
Yeah.
Like there's a Republican Party. There's also a Conservative Party. There's the Democrat Party. There's also a Liberal Party, and there's all these other parties and stuff. So
I love the idea that the Democrats in Manhattan and New York City are not liberal enough.
That's right. You got to be. Which is actually kind of interesting because the really ultra left-wing liberal candidate looks like he's going to win the Democrat nomination, while Andrew Cuomo is actually going to be the liberal candidate, even though he's not as liberal as this maniac Zohran Mamdani, who is a socialist.
Yeah.
And he is now jumped into the lead. I think part of that is because Democrats in New York are crazy. I think part of it is also they just don't like the fact that Cuomo thinks he can salvage his political career by just walking in there and saying, I'm Andrew Cuomo, vote for me, and everyone's going to vote for him. But that's how he's approaching it. He's sort of acting like the heir apparent, and aren't you lucky to have me back? And I think Democrats are like, yeah, you know what? We're done with you. We're done with you and your nonsense. But it's a very crowded field. Then you've got Brad Lander. He's the city comptroller. He's the guy who just got himself arrested for trying to strap himself to an illegal immigrant to keep him from being deported. It's crazy town, the people who are running, and you can't do enough nonsense to try to get attention.
I mean, and it looks like, Zohran Mamdani is doing quite well, Larry. Now, I know there are other options, right? And, of course, there's also a Republican eventually when we get to the general. But it is astonishing that this guy is doing so well. Every idea he has. He just announced, I think, yesterday that he's going to have government-run subsidized grocery stores.
Sure. Absolutely. Well, because you got to get those grocery stores, the big corporations are making it impossible for people to eat.
That's right.
Put the government in charge of distributing food. What could go wrong? When has that ever gone wrong in the history of the planet?
Right. Yeah.
I love he's got the AOC endorsement. Right?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Meanwhile, Andrew Cuomo has the Bill Clinton endorsement. Here's what also Andrew Cuomo has: money. Here's what also Andrew Cuomo has: organization and ground game. That might not be enough, though, these days. Based on the latest polling, and this will be the last poll you see before, today, Andrew Cuomo is basically running just a hair behind Zohran Mamdani. Here's the problem. They're using ranked choice voting for their primary, which I know it's very controversial to a lot of people. I'm okay with ranked choice when it comes to a primary. Don't inflict our general elections. Don't inflict us with our general elections on this kind of thing. But ranked choice is where you put the person that you hate the most at the bottom of the list, basically.
Yeah.
And you say, okay, here's my number one choice, but if he can't get it or she can't get it, I want this person or that person. And they go through multiple rounds. Listen, there have been successes utilizing this system. Look at Glenn Youngkin. That's how Virginians chose Glenn Youngkin. Virginia Republicans chose Glenn Youngkin as their nominee. Seemed to work out okay. We'll see what happens in New York City as they do this ranked choice voting for their nominee. The problem here, Julie, is that it's really hard to poll. It's really hard to sort of take the temperature of the voters when you say, who's your number one choice? Okay, well, now who's your number two choice? Who's your number three choice? And then your poll has to sort of do the process of elimination. And, well, based on the initial round of voting, Cuomo only has a 3 percentage point lead over Mamdani. And then as you go down into lower splits in this Emerson poll, he ends up not doing so well because so many people, it's like, all right, I don't like Cuomo. I take anybody but Cuomo. And they put him at the bottom of the list.
I mean, when you find yourself kind of rooting for Cuomo after what he did in New York during COVID, I mean, that is a really bad slate. That is a really bad. I don't understand what's going on with the Democrats. They just he's an absolute radical that they are going to put up to go against Curtis Sliwa.
Think about it for a second. Let's say you're a Democrat and your choice is this guy and Andrew Cuomo. I mean, if you want to send a message, you vote for the radical. And by the way, it's not like Cuomo's not going to be on the ballot. As I said, he's already secured.
He's a different party. Right.
He will be on the general election ballot as the liberal candidate. And whoever wins the Democrat nomination will be on. Eric Adams is running for re-election. As an independent, he will be on the ballot. He will have people voting for his reelection. I guess what I'm trying to say is there's actually a chance. There's a very real scenario that Curtis Sliwa, the former Hell's I call him a Hell's
he's
Angel.
Still a Hell's Angel.
Guardian,
not Hell's
Guardian Angel, the founder of the Guardian Angels, radio talk show host, and erstwhile candidate who has been running for mayor multiple times. He will be the Republican nominee. And there actually is a scenario where he could eke this out with just 30% of the vote. When you've got Cuomo and Mamdani and Eric Adams splitting the left-wing Democrat vote. Former governor of New York, George Pataki, has actually predicted this. He said, listen, the way I'm looking at it, the way it's breaking down for the left, Sliwa could win this thing.
Well, I hope so. I mean, I don't know how you can make New York less attractive, especially to investors and billionaires. They're going to leave. There's not many left. They're going to leave.
This is the weird thing. It's like I refuse to root for Andrew Cuomo, but if the choice, but if the choice comes down to him and this Zohran Mamdani guy, I mean, New York is finished if he wins.
Absolutely. After what Cuomo did during COVID, I mean, I just.
But part of me is like, you know what? New York deserves Cuomo after what he did during COVID. I hear you.
People always say that. They say if they elect this socialist, I think he identifies himself as a socialist, I think.
Oh yeah.
This Mamdani. Yeah. This line, New York gets what they deserve. I hate that because I love New York. I love New York.
I'm with you.
I just don't understand. I know that a small percentage of New Yorkers actually vote, right? It's these elections are decided on a very small group of people.
Well, this year might be different because
I hope so.
Contested.
I love New York, and it is so sad to see that these are the choices.
I agree. Listen, everyone says, when will we have a Republican running New York again? And I always answer the same way. When things get so bad that people will vote for a Republican. That's what happened with Rudy Giuliani in 1992 after Ed Koch and David Dinkins. It's what happened in Los Angeles after years of Tom Bradley. They elected Richard Riordan. And that wasn't long. That was the 90s, guys. We had a Republican mayor of Los Angeles in the 90s and in New York in the 90s. So it wasn't that long ago. It could happen again. We're going to watch it. We're going to see. And I will assure you of this. If Andrew Cuomo wins, he will run for president. He will run for president either in 28 or in 32. No shame. I guarantee it. His ambition knows no bounds. His arrogance, his narcissism. You almost want him to not get the Democrat nomination and let the communists get it just to teach him a lesson, just to tell him that even Democrats in New York didn't want you. It's 6:15.
WMAL, making sense of the news, live From the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios, Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
So let's explore just how bad this Zohran Mamdani is. This is from an interview in 2020. He is an elected official. I believe he's a state representative. Remember that viral video when Tom Homan was walking through the State House in Albany, and there was a guy that had to be held back by the cops because he looked like he wanted to beat him up, and it was he was really like he was telling the cops, "Please hold me back. Please don't let me near. Please." That was Zohran Mamdani. That's who he is. He's a tough guy. And so Zohran Mamdani was giving an interview about his political views in 2020. This is only 5 years ago. And here's his idea of how to handle the police officers in New York, specifically in high-crime areas. You know how a lot of people say, oh, these high-crime areas, we need more cops on the street. Oh, no. Zohran's smarter than that. Let's listen to the communist, cut 5.
So are you... do you think that we have to almost do without policing in certain areas which are labeled to be high crimes to have alternative bodies? Do the policing in a more compassionate, more merciful, more social, assisting and helping more than arresting and putting in jail?
I absolutely think that what we need to do is give support and funding to institutions that are trained to deal with these kinds of issues. Mm-hmm. As you said, if you're having an argument with someone and there's a risk of it escalating, who is better positioned to de-escalate it? Right. Someone who is well known in the community, or someone who has been trained specifically in de-escalation, or a stranger who has a gun. And we see so many situations where encounters with police, the police arrive and all of a sudden the tension rises even astronomically to what it was prior. Right. And I think that we need to say and ask ourselves, look at how policing is done in the suburbs, in wealthier, whiter America. When people make mistakes, the answer is not to throw them in jail. No. The answer is not to, put them in a cage and throw away the key. The answer is to try and find a non-carceral solution.
Absolutely.
Community service, something where, they learn from their mistakes.
There you go. So in the high-crime areas, we're going to remove the police and put trained social workers in place to de-escalate this. Because, when people are getting mugged and raped and stores are getting burgled, you just need someone to de-escalate.
I mean...
not arrest the bad guys.
This has been done. He knows this has been done. He knows it doesn't work. And also, I love the idea of just taking the police out of certain areas. That's not how it works. A city has a police force. If you defund a police force, you reduce the number of personnel for the entire city. And just the suggestion that everybody is going to react the same. It's just bizarre.
It's demeaning and it's racist. It's
yes.
like, these people of color, they can't handle a cop coming in with a gun. They're going to go berserk. So we better change. We'll police the white neighborhoods differently. It's like, and yet they accuse. There's obviously this suggestion of racism and racial disparity in that entire answer that you just heard. Also, in the same interview, he said that he favored defunding the police, but that was 5 years ago. I'm sure he's different now. Well, here's cut 6 where he talks about the government control of resources and the distribution of food. Yeah, that's right. Take a listen.
Grocery prices are out of control. The cost of eggs and milk has skyrocketed. Some stores are even using dynamic pricing, jacking up the cost over the course of a day depending on what they can get away with. It doesn't need to be this way. I'm Zohran Mamdani, and as mayor, I will create a network of city-owned grocery stores. It's like a public option for produce. We will redirect city funds from corporate supermarkets to city-owned grocery stores, whose mission is lower prices, not price gouging. These stores will operate without a profit motive or having to pay property taxes or rent, and will pass on those savings to you.
Well, listen, it's got a nice beat and you can dance to it, but communism is communism no matter what kind of soundtrack you give it.
I mean, he should really show some videos from, the Soviet Union, those government-owned grocery stores, and show how thriving those were, how many
Red
products
lines
were on the
to
shelves.
New York
yes,
City. Very exciting stuff. And here he was just a few weeks ago discussing the state of Israel. Not that New York City has to have a foreign policy, but it's a good insight into who this man is. Cut 7.
I received a death threat that said they were going to kill me and blow up my car. And they told me to watch out for my beeper, making a reference to when Israel blew up thousands of beepers and pagers across Lebanon.
There you go. It's the Jews. They're coming after me, and they're trying to kill me. He also made the case specifically that he's trying to get the very large Muslim community in New York to come and vote for him. We don't have time for the soundbite, but I will tell you, all eyes are on this race today. We'll see what Democrats in New York City do, and we will have plenty to talk about tomorrow. It's 6:23.
Coming up, we'll talk to our friend Hans von Spakovsky, Senior Legal Fellow at the Heritage Foundation and occasional host here on O'Connor and Company. He'll give us an update on the latest from the Supreme Court and this really exciting ruling that allows the Trump administration to resume quick deportation of some certain illegal immigrants. Keep it here. It's 6:30.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington. A Cumulus media station. Making sense of the news. News Talk 105.9. WMAL. News now. Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
6:37, O'Connor and Company. Thanks for tuning in here. Busy Tuesday morning as we have peace in our time, it appears, in the Middle East. Although, keep our eye on the situation. 7:05, Gila Franklin Siegel with the Jewish Community Relations Council of Greater Washington. 7:35, Matt Foldy back from Israel when all the missiles started flying. He might be Mossad, but we'll ask him when he joins us. At 8:35, Congressman Jim Jordan, chairman of the Judiciary Committee. It's Larry O'Connor with Julie Gunlock. And Julie, look who it is. It's your friend on the radio, Hans von Spakovsky.
Right.
Who often is your cohort when you're filling in for me when I take days off. Hans, thanks for joining us. Always good to talk to you, sir.
Well, thanks for having me back.
Of course, Senior Legal Fellow in the Heritage Foundation Center for Legal and Judicial Studies, and you do your own podcast there, which is growing in its popularity, by the way. Case in Point is the name of the podcast. Congrats on that. We taught you everything you know. Hans,
that is true. That is true.
So quickly, let's reflect on yesterday's decision. This has to do with deporting illegal immigrants in this country to a third-party country.
Right.
Was this even a... I mean, the final decision was 6-3, but there's nothing unconstitutional about this, is there? This is obviously within the grounds of the executive branch.
Yeah, it is. Now, look, there's three things you should know about this. First of all, who was the judge who issued the nationwide stay in Massachusetts? His name is Brian Murphy. He's one of Joe Biden's midnight judges. When was the vote to confirm him? December 2nd, 2024. And he was so bad, so radical, that every single Republican voted against him, even Susan Collins, who you know is probably the most liberal Republican. He barely made it, 47 to 45, okay? Wow. So then let's look at this order. In essence, the Justice Department filed an emergency request with the Supreme Court to stay or suspend that judge's decision in Massachusetts. Oh, by the way, he's also a Columbia Law School grad. That tells you a lot about
Perfect.
him. The court granted it 6-3. Well, what does Sotomayor do, joined by the other two liberal justices? She writes a 19-page screed about how horrible it is what the court is doing and how it's grossly abusing its discretion. Well, she goes into great detail talking about this one very specific immigration statute. It's the one that covers aliens being removed from the U.S. And normally they go back to whatever country they're from, but she ignores and dismisses a catch-all in this statute, which specifically says that the government, the Secretary of Homeland Security, can basically disregard, that's the word they use, can disregard what the alien wants or returning him to his native land if it's impractical, inadvisable or impossible, and they can disregard it if it would be prejudicial to the U.S. In other words, the Secretary of Homeland Security retains complete and total discretion to ignore all these other provisions of the statute and send them to a third world country. And for anybody who thinks, well, it's not prejudicial to return them to their native country, think about this. What's a big problem we have, Julie and Larry? It's repeat offenders, right? You have all these criminal illegal aliens. They're deported. 6 months later, they're back. Well, that's easy to do if you're from Guatemala and you return to Guatemala and you use all the same connections that illegally got you in the country in the first place to come back. If you're from Guatemala and you're now in Sudan, you may not be able to get into the country again quite so easily.
Hans, I don't understand the explanation. Can she read? She bases the does she? I don't understand. Do they ignore this? Do they just willfully ignore? Okay, they just
they do. Look. Let's call a spade here with Sotomayor and the other two justices. Remember, these are the same justices who, in recent cases, believe that doctors should be able to basically kill babies up until the moment they're born. There should be no limits on abortion. Last week, they signed on to an opinion in which they believe that parents, I hate to use this language, but that parents ought to be able to have doctors castrate their teenage son.
Yes.
And yet they're concerned about criminal, illegal aliens being sent to countries that they might not want to return to. Obviously, they think they should be given a choice of which Caribbean resorts they ought to be sent back to.
Yeah, well, you joke. That really is the case. So, so this is a no-brainer. The power is restored to the executive branch. But again, it's another example of a federal judge, and we've had another couple of these federal judges do this over the course of the last couple of weeks. Right. Would it be out of line for Chief Justice Roberts to actually maybe send an email to these federal judges telling them they can't do this?
Well, not an email, but hopefully we will get an opinion soon in the birthright citizenship case in which the court lays out very strict rules on these nationwide injunctions. Oh, and by the way, this Judge Murphy, who also was a public defender before he became a judge at the last minute, he said every one of these illegal aliens has to be given the ability basically to claim asylum, ignoring these are aliens who've been in the country for years. There's a 1-year deadline. There's a strict statute says you got 1 year to make an asylum claim, and if you don't, that's it. And yet he's just ignoring that statute too.
Yeah. So this week, the rest of this week, we're looking, as you mentioned, birthright citizenship issue. And also, is there a decision about these nationwide injunctions as well, and that could have some lasting effect?
Well, it's the birthright citizenship case, because in that case, that the substantive issue is not before the court. They're not deciding whether Trump is right or wrong about his interpretation of the Constitution. They're deciding on whether the nationwide injunctions that were issued against him should be stayed or not. But look, we're also waiting. We're waiting for a decision on the porn case out of Texas. We're waiting for a decision on the school board case out of Maryland, where parents were told they can't opt their kids out of DEI.
Oh, that's right. In Montgomery County. Yeah. That's right. So we got a lot of decisions still coming. Are these decisions going to bleed into next week, or do you expect just this giant flurry on Thursday and Friday?
I think we'll get a giant flurry, but we still might get a day next week. Although it's July 4th week, and I'm sure that the justices all want to get out of town as soon as possible.
I know I would if I were them. All right, Hans, thank you so much as always, sir. Appreciate it.
Sure, thanks for having me.
WMAL's Vince Colonnese, weekdays at noon on 105.9 WMAL, making sense of the news.
Yeah, it's raining men, Julie Gunlock. We wish we had some rain coming on here, even if it were just men falling from the skies. Maine is that state where the governor insists on making sure that men can compete in women's sports. there's something going on in Maine. I don't know if it's in the water or what it is, but they really love their cross-dressers. They're men who believe that they're women, or at least pretend to be women. Look at a local news report, or listen to this local weather report on the local news station in Maine. They brought in a drag queen. The drag queen's name is Charmoney, I guess, and had lots of cleavage with the hair on the chest as an actual additional accent to the cleavage. Here, take a listen to your weather report.
Hello, everybody. I am Chartreuse Money, and today, as current temperatures right here, Saturday, it's 2:40 p.m., honey. It is 80 degrees here in Portland right now, honey, and we are feeling the effects. The sun is out. All it took was a pride parade to bring the sunshine out today, but, honey, it is hot all over the state. We got 78 degrees in Lewiston. I know the people of Lewiston, Auburn are probably celebrating and jumping in the river. Please don't do that. Be safe, because it is hot, 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 and we need to find relief. Sanford's 81. Portsmouth down in New Hampshire is a lovely 83. Honey, the water is 56 degrees.
All right,
okay,
enough
now
with the
I know
honey.
what you're
Enough with the honey. I guess this was for Pride Month or something on this local. This is an NBC station. It looks like I see the peacock there. I hope that's a peacock. But here's the funny thing. If a woman, an actual woman, dressed in this dress with that kind of cleavage, she'd be fired and mocked in the industry.
Yeah.
And can you imagine a normal weather person calling everybody, all the viewers, honey? Again, fireable offense, but you know,
Maine is a disaster, and you know that I go to Maine most years. We go up there in the summer, and I love Maine, and it is such a disappointment. The governor in Maine, I mean, there was that sort of famous dust up with the president where she said she just will continue to allow boys to compete in girls' sports. I can't even imagine what Pride Month is like in Maine.
Well, you don't have to. Now you've heard it.
And the legislature in Maine just passed a bill saying that they will not cooperate with ICE. So look, Maine is wonderful. It used to be red. It used to be a conservative state. It has been ruined by people coming up from Boston and coming up from New York and having summer. Southern Maine is a disaster. And it's kind of like Northern Virginia. You know, it just, they're a strong voting bloc there, and they've ruined the rest of the state. So really depressing. Right.
Susan Collins, what's going on with her? She should fix things up there.
Don't get me started.
It is. I like Maine for one reason. They've got a really good submarine named after them. That's about all we got. It's 6:52, honey.